Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Lily overhears Kane and Amanda's heated argument and discovers the horrifying truth. Weinar. Lily Winters had been on edge for days, unable to shake the feeling that something was swirling beneath the surface of Genoa city life, some storm that threatened to pull her family and loved ones back into a whirlwind of secrets, betrayals, and devastating revelations. And though she tried to focus on her work and her commitment to rebuilding the life she thought she'd carved out after the countless trials of the past, her heart remained tethered to Kane Ashby, the man who had been both her greatest love and her most bitter disappointment, the man who had shattered her trust again and again, yet still occupied a permanent space in her heart. And when she walked into the Chancellor Mansion that evening, intending only to retrieve a folder she had left behind after a tense business meeting, she never imagined she would stumble into the kind of moment that soap opera legends are built on, the kind of life-altering confrontation that draws invisible lines in the sand and forever separates the life that came before from the one that comes after. But as fate would have it, the mansion was not silent, it was not empty, and instead of stillness she was greeted by the sharp, hushed tones of a conversation that immediately made her pause in the hallway, clutching her purse against her chest as she realized that Kane's familiar voice was spilling into the room beyond, heavy with desperation, sharp with the bite of guilt, while Amanda Sinclair's crisp, determined tone cut through the air like a blade, a verbal sparring match that carried an electricity Lily hadn't heard since her law school days. And though she knew it was wrong to linger, though every logical bone in her body told her she should announce her presence and retreat, her heart refused, her instincts rooted her to the spot, because something in the intensity of Kane's voice made her realize that the truth, some horrifying truth he had been concealing, was about to claw its way to the surface whether she was ready or not, and she couldn't walk away from it this time, not when her family's future might be tangled in the web he had spun. So she leaned just close enough to hear the words without being detected, and that was when Amanda's voice, filled with controlled fury, hissed, "You've lied to her long enough, Kane, and if you think you can keep this buried, you're more delusional than I thought." To which Kane immediately barked back, his Australian accent cracking under the weight of panic. "I didn't have a choice, Amanda. Do you think I wanted any of this? Do you think I wanted to live in constant worry that she'd discover the truth, that she'd look at me with those eyes that once trusted in me, and see a monster?" And Lily felt her breath catch in her throat, her fingers trembling against the wood of the hallway arch, because though she didn't yet know the specifics, she knew in that instant that Kane had crossed some line she hadn't even imagined existed, and Amanda, with her razor-sharp sense of justice and her connection to secrets Lily didn't fully understand, was about to drag the whole ugly truth into the light. And indeed Amanda pressed on, her words coming in fierce unra, and Kane's response ragged, desperate, and dripping with the tone of a man who knew his back was against the wall was, "I did it for her, Amanda, I did it for Lily, everything I've ever done, even the things that look unforgivable. I did because I thought I was protecting her, protecting the kids, protecting what little chance we had at a normal life, and maybe I went too far, maybe I crossed lines I can never uncross, but you don't understand what it's like to carry the tell me how you thought she'd survive once the truth came out about the money, about the forged documents, about the fact that you let her believe everything was on the level when in reality you were neck deep in a con that makes Colin look like an amateur. And the worst part, Kane, the absolute worst part, is that Victor Newman's name is entangled in all of this, and you know exactly what that means. You know what kind of destruction that brings once Lily learns that her life, her children's lives, were leveraged in a game between you and Victor. So don't you dare stand here and tell me you did it for her when all you were really doing was covering your own back." And the words hit Lily like a thunderclap, Victor's name slicing through the fog of confusion and dropping her straight into a dizzying swirl of dread. Because if Victor was involved, if Kane had somehow entangled their family's lives with Genoa City's most ruthless mogul, then the truth Amanda was referencing wasn't just a personal betrayal, it was something deeper, darker, the kind of horrifying truth that had the power to devastate not just her marriage, not just her trust, but the very foundation of her family. And in that moment, with tears threatening to burn behind her eyes, Lily realized she could no longer stand in silence, could no longer let the confrontation unfold without her, because whether she was ready or not, the truth was already here, pressing down on her chest like a crushing weight. And though the words came out as barely more than a whisper, they carried the force of a bomb detonating as she stepped into the room, her voice trembling but clear. "What truth, Kane?" What are you hiding from me? The looks on Kane and Amanda's faces, the sheer horror on his, the grim satisfaction on hers, told Lily that nothing would ever be the same again, because the horrifying truth she was about to hear would shatter her heart into pieces too jagged to ever be put back together the same way. Lily's words hung in the air like a knife, cutting through the tension with a sharpness that made both Kane and Amanda freeze in their tracks. And though Kane tried to form an excuse, some half-baked deflection he might have used in the past to buy himself time, his lips trembled and no words came out, because he could see in Lily's eyes that this was different, that this wasn't the same woman who once accepted his apologies, tears, and pleas for one more chance you wanted to continue playing. This game in which you convince yourself you're the martyr? Well, you just lost that option because she deserves to know every single detail. And Lily, her breath trembling, stepped farther into the room, her voice quiet but searing. Tell me what you've done, Kane, tell me everything before I hear it from her. But Kane, shaking his head furiously, snapped, Don't do this, Amanda, don't take away the only thing I have left. And Amanda fired back, You already took it away yourself when you forged Victor's signature, when you laundered money through Chancellor funds, when you pretended you
were saving the family legacy while you were actually gambling with it, and when you decided that the only way to keep Lily by your side was to bury her in lies so deep she'd drown before she ever reached the surface, and Lily's legs nearly gave out from under her as the words washed over her, because even though she wasn't sure she had grasped all the details, she understood the devastating core of what Amanda was saying. Kane had once again deceived her, betrayed her, used her love as a shield while building a house of cards so fragile it was destined to collapse, and with her voice breaking, she demanded, Kane, is it true? Did you actually forge Victor's signature? Did you truly risk with Chancellor, our children's future, and me? And Kane's face contorted with anguish as he finally collapsed under the weight of his own guilt, falling to his knees as if the truth itself had struck him down, and he confessed, words tumbling out in a flood that Lily would never forget, yes. Yes, it is true. I forged his signature, I laundered the money, I thought I could get ahead of Colin, I thought I could fix everything before it blew up, I thought I could finally prove to you that I wasn't a failure, that I was strong enough to protect you and the kids, but all I did was drag us deeper into danger, and I swear to you, Lily, I never meant to hurt you, I never meant for you to find out this way, I was going to make it right, I was going to fix it before you ever had to carry this burden, but Lily, with tears streaming down her face, shook her head in disbelief, her voice trembling as she whispered, You don't get it, Kane, you never get it, it's not about whether you meant to hurt me, it's about the fact that you keep making choices that rob me of mine, you keep deciding for me what truths I can handle, what lies I have to live with, and you've turned my life into a prison of your secrets, and Amanda, sensing Lily's devastation, softened slightly, her own voice steady but sympathetic as she said, Lily, I didn't want you to find out like this, but you needed to know, because this isn't just about a forged document or a pile of laundered money, this is about Victor Newman having leverage over Kane now, and if Victor decides to use it, and you know he will, then it won't just be Kane who pays, it'll be you, it'll be Devon, it'll be your entire family caught in the crossfire. And the mention of Devon jolted Lily like a slap, because the thought of her brother, of his company, of the stability he had worked so hard to maintain being dragged into Kane's mess was unbearable, and her grief twisted into fury as she turned to Kane, her voice cutting like glass, Do you understand what you've done? You didn't just betray me, you betrayed my family, Devon, and every ounce of trust anyone ever gave you, all for what? For pride? Are you desperate to prove yourself? And Kane, sobbing openly now, reached for her hand, but she yanked it away as if his touch burned. And in that moment she realized that the horrifying truth wasn't just about the documents or Victor's involvement, it was about the fact that Kane would never stop, he would never learn, he would always find some new deception, some new gamble, some new excuse to cloak betrayal in the guise of protection, and as Amanda looked on, her face unreadable, Lily felt something in her heart snap, a final break that had been years in the making, and she whispered, more to herself than to him, I can't do this anymore. Kane, I can't keep being the one who pays the price for your mistakes, before she turned and fled from the room, her sobs echoing through the halls of the mansion, leaving Kane crumpled on the floor and Amanda staring after her, knowing that the truth, once unleashed, can never be caged again, and outside, as Lily stumbled into the night, clutching her chest as though to keep her heart from shattering completely, she knew that everything had changed, that this revelation was only the beginning of a storm that would tear through Genoa City, pulling in Devon, Jill, Victor, and anyone else unlucky enough to be standing too close when the fallout hit, because secrets of this magnitude don't just destroy marriages, they ignite wars. Lily didn't remember how she made it from the Chancellor Mansion to Devon's penthouse, her tears blurring the city lights into streaks of color as she drove through the night on autopilot, her hands gripping the steering wheel as if it were the only thing tethering her to reality, but by the time she was standing outside her brother's door, her body trembling with exhaustion and fury, she knew she had no choice but to tell him everything, because if Kane's betrayal had, what was he doing now? And she collapsed against him, her body racked with sobs as she tried to form words, but all that came out at first were broken fragments: Kane, Victor, forged documents, lies, and though Devon couldn't piece it all together immediately, his protective instincts kicked in as he guided her to the couch, forcing her to breathe, forcing her to slow down enough to explain, and once she managed to tell him what she had overheard, once the horrifying truth spilled from her lips in one long exhale, she watched his face shift from confusion to shock to a cold fury she rarely saw in her brother, and he stood abruptly, pacing the room as he muttered, "I knew it, I knew he couldn't be trusted, I knew he'd find some way to drag you down again, but I didn't think he'd be reckless enough to pull Victor into this, to risk everything we've built, everything Neil worked so hard for, because now it's not just about you, Lily, it's about Hamilton Winters, it's about Chancellor, it's about our family name." Being used as pawns in Kane's pathetic need for validation, and Lily, through her tears, whispered, "I don't know what to do, Devon, I don't know how to fix this, I don't even know who I'm supposed to be anymore, because every time I think I've rebuilt myself, every time I think I've created a life free of lies, Kane finds a way to shatter it all over again, and now I feel like I'm right back where I started, trapped in the ruins of his choices." And Devon knelt in front of her, taking her hands in his and saying firmly, "You're not trapped, Lily, not this time, because now you have me, you have family, you have people who won't let him tear you apart again, and if Kane thinks he can drag us down with him, he's wrong, because I won't let it happen." But even as his words gave her comfort, Lily couldn't silence the echo of Amanda's warning in her mind, the reminder that Victor Newman had leverage now, and as if conjured by her thoughts, Victor himself was at that very moment sitting in his office at Newman Enterprises, staring down at the very forged document Kane had created, a smirk curling across his lips as he considered the countless ways he could use this new weapon, because for Victor, every betrayal was an opportunity, every mistake by another man was a tool to solidify his own power, and though Kane believed he had been clever enough to cover his tracks, Victor had already pieced together the puzzle, had already identified the perfect pressure points. Lily's loyalty, Devon's protectiveness, Jill's stake in Chancellor, and Kane's own desperate need to be seen as more than a fraud, and with a glass of scotch in hand, he muttered to himself, "Well, Kane, you've finally proven useful," before picking up his phone to make a call, his voice calm, commanding, and chillingly precise as he told his associate, "I want every move that man makes tracked, every call he places monitored, because when I decide to make my play, I don't want him having any room to wiggle free." And back at Amanda's suite, the lawyer sat alone, replaying the confrontation in her mind, wondering if she had gone too far by exposing Kane in front of Lily, but also reminding herself that keeping quiet would have been just as destructive, because secrets of this scale always come out eventually, and Amanda knew firsthand how devastating it was to live under the shadow of lies. Yet she also felt the weight of Kane's broken expression, the image of a man who, for all his faults, had truly loved Lily, even if that love had manifested in catastrophic ways, and she whispered into the silence, "You'll thank me one day, Lily, even if it doesn't feel like it now," though deep down she wondered if she had just lit the match that would burn Kane Ashby to the ground, and Kane himself, still kneeling on the floor of the Chancellor Mansion long after Lily had fled, felt the crushing emptiness of loss more profoundly than ever before, because this wasn't the first time he had betrayed her, it wasn't the first time she had walked away in tears, but it was the first time he felt the finality of it, the sense that no amount of apologies or desperate promises could bring her back this time, and though he tried to convince himself that he had acted out of love, that everything he had done was in service of protecting his family, a darker voice gnawed at the edges of his mind, whispering that Amanda was right, that it had never really been about Lily or the kids, that it had always been about him, about his need to prove he was more than the conman Colin raised, more than the fraud who stumbled his way into the Chancellor fortune, and that realization, that horrifying self-awareness, made him slam his fist against the floor in frustration, tears mixing with anger as he vowed to himself, I won't let Victor win, I won't let Amanda destroy me, and I sure as hell won't let Lily walk away thinking I'm nothing but a coward, even though, deep down, he feared that was exactly what he was. And as the night stretched on and the players scattered across Genoa City, Lily trying to hold herself together in Devon's arms, Devon vowing to shield his sister at all costs, Amanda questioning the cost of her own choices, Victor sharpening his knives in the shadows, and Cain unraveling in his isolation, the stage was set for an explosion that would rock the entire town. Because once a horrifying truth is unleashed, it doesn't stop with one broken marriage or one ruined reputation, it spreads like wildfire, consuming everyone in its path until nothing but ashes remain, and though Lily prayed she had the strength to rise again, she knew the coming days would test her more than any prison sentence, any heartbreak, any loss she had ever endured, because this wasn't just about betrayal anymore, it was about survival, legacy, and the brutal cost of loving a man who could never stop lying, even when the truth was the only thing that could save him. By the time dawn broke over Genoa City, the fallout had already begun to ripple outward, because Jill Abbott, ever the matriarch and protector of the Chancellor legacy, had gotten wind of Cain's latest disaster through whispers that traveled faster than truth itself, and she stormed into the mansion with the kind of fury only Jill could summon, her heels clicking against the marble as she barked his name, and when she found him slumped in the study, looking like a man who hadn't slept in years. She didn't waste time with pleasantries, instead unleashing a tirade that echoed through the halls. How dare you drag this family's name through the mud again, Cain, how dare you spit on Catherine's legacy, how dare you put Chancellor at risk when it was the one chance you had to prove you weren't the failure Colin raised you to be, and don't even try to tell me you did this for Lily, because she deserves so much better than the lies you keep feeding her. And though Cain tried to stand his ground, his voice cracked as he pleaded, Jill, I swear, I thought I could fix it, I thought I could stop Colin's schemes before they reached you. I thought I could be the man Lily needed me to be, but Jill wasn't moved, her voice laced with ice as she said, what Lily needed was honesty, Cain, what she needed was a partner, not a fraud, and the saddest part is you never believed she could love you without the lies, so you built your entire life around them, and now look where it's gotten you. Alone, despised, and one step away from being devoured by Victor Newman, and that name again, spoken with the weight of inevitability, made Cain's stomach twist. Because even Jill knew what was coming, and indeed, across town, Victor was already making his move, summoning Lily to his office with a polite yet unmistakably commanding message, and though Devon tried to stop her, insisting he should go in her place, Lily refused, saying softly but firmly, if Victor wants to face me, then I'll face him, because I won't let Cain's mistakes define me, and I won't let Victor use me as a pawn, and so she entered Newman Enterprises with her head held high, though her heart pounded with dread, and when she walked into Victor's office, she was met with that infamous steely gaze, the look of a man who had seen empires rise and fall at his command, and he gestured for her to sit before speaking in that calm, deliberate voice that carried more menace than shouting ever could, Lily, I have great respect for you, for the way you've carried yourself,